Welcome back to the Your Wealth and Beyond podcast. Today, we are excited to welcome Andrew Amann, CEO, co-founder of 923 Studio, an award-winning AI agency. Worked with brands like Consumer Reports, Simple Safe, and Experian. Andrew, you are a serial entrepreneur who's founded 14 companies, 3 of which successfully exited, also holding 2 patents. Done a lot. Excited to have you join us today. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm excited today because the intersection of helping entrepreneurs and technology, especially over the last few years, and how AI corresponds to growth and scaling. But for you, although for the mainstream it's been a few years, you've been at this for well over 13. So it's not new hat for you, but you're starting to see some of the evolution that you guys, when you started 923 back in the day, you're starting to see things come to fruition. So before I jump into that though, nuclear submarines, engineer, into a CEO of a AI agency. How does that happen?
Yeah, so we started in 2012. I was working both jobs from 2012 to 2016. We built a digital business card app that basically, if you've ever used a QR code between 2 people scanning, like on LinkedIn or HubSpot, when you meet and you tap that QR code, we had that technology. We kind of started with that technology on Android and iPhone. So we had the largest app in the United States sharing that information between 2 people when they meet. And so it's called the NiGo. And at the same time, I was a nuclear submarine engineer. So I worked out of college as a mechanical engineer. I did the hovering pump, but very quickly I moved into the program office where I was moving around the country on all the different submarines and understanding different design tactics, different innovations that you can put on submarines. So I was responsible to sitting in meetings and understanding not just what they're building, but why they're building different systems and what the future of submarine warfare is going to look like. So very quickly I call it an entrepreneur, which is a pretty generalized term now. But I was responsible for creating new ideas and new concepts and coming up with different ways to design things. I was the youngest member by like 20 years. And I was iterating, I was starting that muscle of looking at business problems, understanding how systems work. I became a supply chain analyst in that company. And I started inventing products. We got 3 patents passed through the United States Patent Office in the nuclear submarine space. All of them tracking parts on a manufacturing floor. And so by doing that and like practicing that muscle, I kept working on creating ideas and creating concepts. And after a while, I realized it'd be kind of cool to do this for myself, not for somebody else. And the reward was great internally. I had great mentors. I had great advisors. But I wanted to jump and see if I could do it without, the support of the government and the support of my companies. And I did, right? So the first product we came up with was sold in 2016. It was a great success. And we built 14 companies since then around the same concept. We're done with those days. We're now just an AI agency, but it has taught me a lot of how to build products the right way.
And doing a little research, I've always loved to hear, companies where they come up with their names. So you guys pivoted, and after you sold that, 923, where did it? I know where it came from, but why don't you tell the audience what that actually means?
Sure. So when you work 2 jobs, especially without kids, you have a lot of time at night to work on your second job. And so I would get done work at 5 o'clock, go home, have dinner, hang out with the wife as long as possible. She'd go to bed around 10. And actually, to make the story perfect, she went to bed around 9. And then I would get on my desk. And so me and my co-founder worked together for 5 years from 9 p.m. till 3 a.m. And I'd wake up at 3, I'd go to bed at 3 a.m., wake up at 7 or 8 and go to work. And so I did that for 5 years with my co-founder, and that's how we created that second company. And that's why the company's called 9-to-3.
I love it. And did both of you guys have a little bit of a background in the coding and development side, or was one of you focused on the business and, the bigger vision and the design, and then the other was focused more on the inner workings of it?
Yeah, I definitely was the dreamer, and Pavel was the integrator. He was the person responsible for putting the code to paper and like figuring out how the systems worked. He learned Android by just practice, and it's a startup, so we only have our 4 hands. So I did the sales and marketing. Pavel did all the code and the technology. We started hiring once we made a little bit of money, and so we were able to hire an iOS developer. We were able to hire a team to support us, but I still carried on the sales and marketing part of that company all the way to now. Like, I don't have other salespeople in the company. I think it's important that my experience is what people are trying to find when they're looking in the market for somebody that's built AI before. And I'm deciding, is this a good project for us? And is the team that we've hired a match for the company that's looking at this? So my sales and marketing skills, even from those early days, have taught me a great lesson on how to be a good person and how to be a good salesman.
And over the years, you guys have built a lot of cool apps, a lot of big companies. But if we, a lot of the listeners here, they're, business owners in different businesses, not just technology. And we're trying to grapple with the speed of AI and the transformation that we've seen over the last few years. So what are some real basic tips that you can give to an entrepreneur as they're trying to figure out how they can utilize some of the things that are happening, whether they custom build or just utilize off the market type things that they can license without it being where it's, from the standpoint of just mind blowing of like, there's too much coming at me. I don't know what to do, but I know I need to do something, because if I don't, I'm going to be left and the train's going to leave without us.
Yeah. There's four phases of AI, in my opinion. The first phase and the first wave that we officially as humans installed into our lives is in 2012 when Facebook introduced the newsfeed. That form of AI is predicting what you're going to look at next. It's been a huge advertising campaign for probably $1 trillion industry, but just based on that, every fifth post is an advertisement. And so as you're scrolling through Facebook, the amount of money and the amount of AI that's used to figure out what that person is going to look at, it's a massive undertaking. And we have all been trained on anything we use on a computer now that we're going to be fed ads. And that is the first wave of AI that happened. And it's an algorithmic machine learning it's predicting basically. Then the second wave of AI, came in 2015, 2016, when we started realizing that we can do predictive analysis using machine learning, regression, that type of stuff. So that machine learning was what we started with AI. We were predicting house sales in the United States. You give us a zip code, we'll tell you with 85% accuracy which house will sell in that zip code. And that's using a lot of legacy machine learning, but using it in the new form that people started realizing can be predictive powers for their company. We also worked for Symbiotica, trying to figure out how sales happen on their systems, and can you predict which products people want before they even check out? So which products can we show them? Again, very machine learning based. The third wave of AI is the generative part, founded in 2017, 2018 with the GPT, and moving that into what we now use as ChatGPT, and people thinking that generative AI meant chat, and chat was the wave of AI that people were trying to install in their companies. We have bubbled with that, and I think it's safe to say, especially with companies like Klarna now hiring humans instead of chatbot AI, they moved, if you don't know the story, Klarna basically fired on the spot hundreds of people, if not close to 1,000 people in their customer service department, and replaced it with an AI chat. They are now hiring all those humans back because the AI chat doesn't work as they promised. And so there's this chat phase that we all went through. We're in the fourth phase now. And the fourth phase is workflow automations with agents. This is truly what we've been building for the last 10 years. Every system we build for our clients and our customers is in the mindset that we're going to build these agents that last a long period of time. Now we're starting to see the mainstream companies like Google and Facebook and Microsoft, the two conferences they had last week at Build and I/O, they're releasing agents into the wild, and they're using MCPs, they're using servers, they're communicating apps together. Copilot is becoming the home base of your Microsoft Office computer, whether you're using Windows or you're just using the Office products or Outlook. We are finally in that phase, and it's only been a few months of you can integrate your entire computer and your workflows through natural language. And this is the revolution that's going to change business. Chatbot was fun, and we have a few products and a few clients that are getting great revenues on them, but it's a very controlled chatbot. If you guys can all see the screen, we built ChuckGPT, which is a Charles Barkley chatbot that you can communicate with. It's a fun, great product that gets hundreds of thousands of people on the product. Is it going to make FanDuel a whole bunch of money from workflow automation and save them costs or create more revenue? No, but it is an entertainment piece for the marketing side to expand their reach and expand how many people view FanDuel. Those are great purposes for chat. It has to be guardrailed, it has to be safe, it has to be controlled. That's what we do. But throwing a chatbot on your website and calling you AI ready is not what companies should be doing. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of founders made up until this point, and they're starting to realize that mistake. They needed to do it in a very strategic way. So my advice is Don't look at the chatting side of generative AI. Look at the workflow automation. How do you assign an agent to do something for you every day, every hour, every minute? That is like hiring an employee to do that task and teaching the computer to be accurate with the results it gets back. If you can do that, you can save a whole bunch of money in your company.
Yeah, and I actually tested out the Google Flow last week. It's
amazing.
Like I was able to create within 30 minutes, I was able to create, it wasn't the best video, but I was able to create 7 different scenes, splice it all together, add the music using iMovie. But it's just like when I show that to somebody and say, this was just text prompts and then continuing on with it and then seeing where it's crazy. It's scary what's happening.
Yeah, Google is like the white knight or whatever, the underdog at this point. I don't know why. And if you dig into the Google products, there's a service out there that's like, it's called Google Ultra, and they offer 15 products underneath it. Notebook LM is one of them. It's just a phenomenal product. Flow is another. VO, the video stuff, it's a great product. They have generative search inside of that service as well. They are releasing products at breakneck speed, and they are far above and beyond what I've seen on the marketplace prior to these releases of any product they're competing against. So they're like the white horse of like generative AI right now.
And so when you have a potential client, and you're trying to flesh through what their ultimate goal is, you have a 4 or 5 step process there. So why don't you walk us through that a little bit of like what these business owners, what we have to start thinking about, whether it's hiring you, internally looking within their marketing team, all of those different things of like how we can figure out, okay, what's the end goal? We've got all these shiny new objects, all of it looks great, but we don't want to get caught in the weeds and all of a sudden we're losing productivity because we're trying to build something shiny and new that isn't going to actually provide any value for the company.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 parts that are happening. One is that Klarna wave is, the CEOs talk about that at their events, at the conferences. They talk about these chatbots not working for their company and not actually saving money. So that spread quickly. And whether there was a great agency building a great product that actually was making money, it drowned out all of the noise of all the crap that was just on the internet, spitting out non-deterministic answers of false questions and false responses, that people started to get annoyed with it and saying, I'm not installing that in my product, right? Our content team purchased a Chevy truck for $1. Chevy had to go through with it, right? Like they promised it. There was no takesies backsies in the comment thread. So companies were getting just beat up by these chatbots. CEOs were discussing like, how do we actually solve this? So what is the new conversation that needs to happen? CEOs need to stop looking at AI as a conversation or as a chatbot, and they need to look at it as like hiring an employee that is specifically going to do a task for their company. And once they do that and they see the results of that, they realize that they have 2 questions. Is this going to work every single time I ask the question? And 2, is my data going to stay private? And so CEOs need to then find the use case internally or externally with the company that's going to build this privately and deterministically. So we have a great example where there's a PDF, and on the PDF, we have to find a bunch of medical data. Medical data can happen, if you get a bunch of reports or a bunch of data, you can find that medical information about an individual person or a use case, or you're trying to figure out what is a diagnostic, like all of those things you're trying to do with medical, it's scattered. But when you ask for a date and you say, when was this medical research paper published? We don't need AI for that. We don't need AI to guess at the date. If there's 50 dates in the document and it's reading all 50 dates, now it does have to do a little bit of guessing of which one was the date published. Now, obviously, we're looking for published date and then right next to it. There are a bunch of systems and a bunch of deterministic programs we've created as software engineers for many, many years that is called OCR, that recognizes text, and we can compare that with a deterministic answer that says if it says published by or any word similar to that, and within the proximity of that there's a date, let's return that date. We don't need a large language model, but that is part of a system. That is an agent that is an OCR agent, but it is determining every time, is there a date next to published by or is there not a date? And there's another project we have where it helps people when they go to prison write a report of what they did, what they did poorly or good, to help the judge understand, is this a person that gets a longer sentence time or not? Well, searching for drugs in a giant document like that is very hard. There's certain drugs that have specific names or nicknames. And so if they misses that nickname of a drug, We then can add deterministically to the list of names of what that drug is called and say, next time this report is run, this nickname is going to find out that this drug is part of this report. These are the types of systems that allow CEOs to gain trust back into AI. And then when you add the generative part of summarizing, understanding, doing the actual multi-step process that agents can do, now you're finally getting to the point where AI can solve problems for companies.
Yep. And so, and just a use case here, Your Wealth and Beyond podcast focused on entrepreneurs, business owners, but, financial planning advisory firm that I've built over the last 15 years, we've been utilizing in the beginning AI more so to help with some of the content and the, summarizing for the blogs and helping to figure out what are the questions people are asking so that we can be relevant in some of the material we put out. We've been very, from the standpoint of compliance, like you had mentioned, the data is very, very important in most industries, healthcare, like you indicated, financial services. But one area where we've finally been able to move on is with regards to a service that was built specifically for the financial advisory space. We're using a company called Zox AI, but ultimately it allows in the meeting to sit behind. And it doesn't record it in an actual where we have an MP3, which is good for compliance. But then at the end of the meeting, it extrapolates it out and summarizes it saved us probably over 30 to 45 minutes in regards to what happens after a meeting, and then the preparation in future meetings where the AI can pull out and see what happened over these last few meetings. What are some of the questions that the advisor needs to ask? And so again, that takes from a case prep situation. We look at that, if we're saving 30, 45 minutes, you multiply that by the amount of time in each week and each year, that's a real savings for us. And it's all about, from that standpoint, making us more efficient.
Yeah, those are great use cases, because not only are you solving the problem for yourself, you're solving the problem for your other teammates. So then they can use that tool. Now, what's important about that, though, is that it stays on brand and on topic. Your notes and the way that you do business is different from another podcast host. And so their guidelines, their guardrails, what they want for information is going to be completely different. If you're a SaaS company building this tool, you probably wouldn't buy that SaaS product because it doesn't have the features and the response that you want out of the answer, like that you want out of the summary. And so it's a very fine line now between what we can do as individuals with agents and with our systems that are set up on our knowledge base, and what SaaS products that we used to purchase to solve problems for productivity are just becoming unnecessary. It's almost like it's like democratizing. It's becoming a commodity to build an idea or a product for the CEO. And he's like, hey, can we go build this report? Can you guys go generate this summary for podcasts, like all the notes, all the internal notes we're doing? That used to be a 3-week approval process, a multi-SaaS comparison tool, figuring out which one's best for the company, then calling them, purchasing it, adding the seats, getting the licenses. Now it's 15 minutes of chopping away at a prompt, connecting it with an MCP server, and then gathering the information and running it across the brand notes and figuring out that this is exactly what my company wants. And that's way better use of your time than calling SaaS companies.
And then what are some of the things is people becoming more and more knowledgeable that, hey, this was AI generated? That human aspect, you had mentioned the chatbots, we never actually built it into our, on the financial advisory side for the same reasons you said. This just didn't feel right for me. I just this isn't on brand. But how can we make sure that even if an employee is sending an email out to a potential client or center of influence or a potential partner, how can we make sure, put those guidelines in that person's not going to look at that and be like, hey, this is AI gen. How do we humanize it? What are some of the tips that you would give to some of your clients or the business owners that are listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I don't think of it as AI generated or human generated. I think of it as serving the purpose that was asked in the email or serving the purpose that was necessary in the most succinct way. There's a great meme that goes around where a person's like trying to write an email and he's like, my boss told me to make this like 12 pages long. And so he asks ChatGPT to make it 12 pages long, sends the email off. The female that picks it up on the other side says, this is 12 pages long. I don't want to read all this. Summarize the email. And so the bullet points that he was given to expand in an email ended up being the bullet points that the person read. And I think it's a meme, but it's the same concept that you're suggesting of, if it's AI written, does it matter if an agent is picking it up on the other end? And if an agent is picking it up on the other end, we're actually doing a workflow that's, really below us. And so even my customers should have agents that not only understand what I'm doing, but I should have expectations that when I ask a customer to do something, that their agent or their EA will be picking up that low-level task. So I need to go up a level and think of the greater things that human-to-human conversations need to be. And then I need to even talk to my customers and say, hey, all of these automated tasks that we're sending back and forth in email, let's stop that. We have a system that allows agents to check off what we're working on, to make sure that our calls are set up, to make sure all the meeting notes are being sent to both of us at the same time. That's all automated. We don't need to have communication about that anymore. And so the line is not what's AI generated, what's not AI generated. The line is what is human-to-human conversations that need to happen, and what else can be out of the way for us to do our jobs.
And as things are moving so fast, how do you, as the CEO of your firm, how do you stay on top of things, you and your team, so that you're moving ahead in that light speed that things are cranking right now?
Yeah. So first of all, we've been around, like the first ML AI individuals at our company started in 2016. So we've had a lot of practice of things moving fast, right? GPTs came out a few years after we started our agency. The first thing that I'll say is never jump on anything that you hear for the first time, no matter what it is. GPT, it took till 3.5 before the world heard about it. We built a product before it was called ChatGPT. We were building on OpenAI. We built a mental health therapist in a chatbot using that technology, but it wasn't called ChatGPT at the time. It was just OpenAI's chat mechanism. I actually forget the name at this point. But my point is, like, there are things that are come out, and the second you hear about them, a few months later, they'll go away. I haven't heard too much about, what was that coding system that everybody talked about that was supposed to replace coders? It had like a single first name. It was like Edward or something like that. But anyways, like, it came out, it had a huge onslaught of people saying, this is like the next generation. This is how everyone's going to code. I haven't even heard someone write about it in Twitter or LinkedIn in the last month. And I've even forgotten the name at this point. But the concept is, when you hear something for multiple times, and then you start hearing people using it, and then you start hearing people not only using it, but finding use cases that are producing either lower cost or higher revenue, then you start paying attention. Because you should have an idea of what's coming out, and you should have an idea of the names, but you should only pay attention and double down on the ones that are actually working and the ones that are like standing the test of time. There's a great quote, and it's by the guy that writes The Black Swan. His name's Nassim Taleb, and he has this thing called the Lindy effect. And we've been in business for 12 years or 13 years. There's a good probability that we'll be in business for another 13 years. If a product takes 3 months to build, there's a good probability that it's only going to be around for 3 months. These products that are just popping up out of anywhere by these vibe coders, they don't stand the test of time. And so it's silly for all of us to spend our brain power on the newest thing or the newest marketing trick or the newest Twitter hack, because all of those are singular use cases that worked for that person in that scenario. We need to start focusing on the Googles, the Microsofts, the Facebooks, and I'm leaving Apple out of this because I have no idea what they're doing. But when you focus on those companies and you start seeing them announce MCPs at their conference, and you've heard the word MCP for the last 6 months, and so November of 2024, start paying attention of what an MCP is. Because an MCP is going to change how APIs interact between two SaaS products. And now at this point, it is the standard word and context and like the nomenclature to use when you're talking between two companies, because Microsoft and Google just declared that they're doing MCPs into their operating system. That is huge. That is something that finally you need to learn what an MCP is. You need to learn how it works. And you need to learn as a CEO how to integrate that into your company. Because if Google and Microsoft are doing it and Claude came up with it 6 months ago, that's something to pay attention to.
So for the beginner, the someone who's not as knowledgeable, just real quick elevator, what can you teach them about MTP right now?
Think of an API. If I was to connect to HubSpot, I would have to hire a developer to write all the code necessary for me to move a deal, add a new deal, add a contact, add a company, change a company name. Each thing I said is a period of time that a developer would have to take to develop code, to do an API call, to do that action. Now, in natural language, I can set up a Claude server, and I now have access to every API in HubSpot, and I can ask a natural language for it to do anything, and the MCP server will figure out what call to make, what API to write. It'll write that API, Go make that change with permission, with security, only for my account, and then return back to me the results.
You get that all, listeners?
Yeah.
Okay. You had mentioned mental. I just want to unpack something real quick. So you built something in regards to therapy or mental wellness.
Yes.
Is this starting to? I was actually just talking to my EO forum last week about this. Is that becoming more of a thing where people are using AI generated type of whatever the LLMs or whatnot to actually engage with a therapist?
Yes. This product was never released because it was never safe enough. And it's not our fault. It's not the customer that hired us fault. Mental health is a very touchy subject that has a lot of edges and a lot of edge cases. We for sure can keep it safe from doing harm to humans. We for sure can keep it from swearing or calling humans names or making the scenario worse. But when it gets to mental health and the customer asks us a specific question that we haven't seen in our training data before, it needs to have a professional licensed person to respond to that. So that's where we ended. That's why the contract never got published. And if you look at our website, it just shows us like there's a percentage of what people thought was human and thought was AI. We beat that percentage. Our AIs was better at being human than humans were. That's a good thing for the technology, but a bad thing for the humans, because the actual part of the human is actually understanding where to say, I need help. And I also can't answer this right now, but we need to go look in a book and I need to ask my peers and I need to figure out how to answer this question correctly because I can't answer it on the spot. Those types of things, it's very hard to train into a large language model. From the person asking, like if you're just talking to a large language model, like the movie Her, you can, of course, like ChatGPT is trained to not be a therapist. So it won't do things that therapists do to actually benefit you. It can get close and it can feel like you have a pretty good friend, but it's not going to solve the problem of actually getting help. There is nothing on the market that I've seen or even comes close to a human that can give you help for your actual problems.
And then what do you think's what's the evolution gonna be? I think this was on a recent Tim Ferriss podcast in regards to, how fast things are moving with, deep fakes and video, or if somebody is actually really writing things versus it being generated from, a non-human. Are there going to be things like check marks or things to show that this is, if I'm, a politician or an influencer or somebody high profile, we're hearing it day after day where they're taking things from Rogan or this and that, and they're creating these deep fakes and they're selling things. Yes. How are we going to protect the people as this future takes hold?
Yeah, I don't have a specific answer, but I know a few things that aren't publicized as nearly as much as they should be. Generative AI images and generative AI videos is a collection of images that are similar to the one that you're trying to mimic or create. So the intricacies of my face are very particular, and pixel to pixel, my face is very particular, just like yours is. If I run this through an AI model, there are parts of my face that will not show up in the final picture. It'll be a combination of other people, I hope celebrities and really good looking people that end up trying to replicate me, because that's how the model is trained. It's not just taking pictures of me, it's taking pictures of other people in similar poses. When that happens, you will not get true pixel to pixel representation of that person you're trying to mimic. What that means is it's very easy to detect to this day. Videos is the same thing. A video is not a perfect representation of Obama or Trump. It is a combination of videos between that president and other people that look like him in those poses, which means if you go frame by frame, and an AI can go frame by frame, it's very easy to detect that it's an AI video to this day, right? Like up until this technology that I'm talking about today. Google, in that suite that we talked about earlier, has a product and it's free. You upload an image to it, you upload a video to it, and you say, is this an AI image or not? And it tells you with 100% confidence. If it's AI, it knows, right? If it's a human, then it's like, it's like 15% AI. But the point is, we can detect this today. In the future, I agree with you that there's like two things that need to happen. And I just moved from what was factual, and now this is theoretical, like Andrew's opinion. The two things that need to happen is, if it's a real video, we need to find something on my computer that as it's recording, it has a logo, a watermark, something on the screen itself that is not AI created, kind of like a CAPTCHA, but for video, so that these videos cannot be duplicated, copied, or sent. because that video has this watermark. I think that is inevitable because otherwise we'll never know what's original. But then the second thing I think is once we have that original stamp, if we do decide to go that direction, that original stamp needs to have some sort of monetization to it. If it gets duplicated, I need to understand and approve or not approve that video to be used in specific cases. I finally hope that blockchain becomes useful in this scenario because like that is how you write to the blockchain and figure out how to pull an exact like token from that blockchain to say this video or this content or this image was created, and it's, you know, we've been like blockchain has proven out that it is very hard to hack. And so therefore like the blockchain has the ability to then with the correct technology, put a token, put a pixel, put something on it that cannot be hacked to show that my video is original. And if you are to use it, I should have access to say, yeah, it's 13 cents or $1 if you want to replicate it.
Interesting. And so you think that something's going to have to happen within the next few years?
Yeah. I think it can't happen on the receiver side, right? Because marketers will ruin everything. We all are aware of that. And so once they get their access to deepfakes, like commercials are going to start happening. Like we're going to create AI content regardless of what, if someone tells you have to put a watermark on an AI piece of content, you know, marketers are not going to do that. They're going to like, just like GDPR, not everyone follows GDPR, even though they have to. Marketers will ruin it if they're told to just do it. We need the creators to say, I don't want my content stolen. Here is a way for me to make sure that my content is original.
And then some of your thoughts, I know you're not, you know, specifically a marketer. All you do is things which helps on marketing, but, you know, we've been having some of these conversations in-house with my marketing team, you know, and just regarding SEO and the, you know, transformation with what's going to happen with Google and AI and what type of content should be created. Do you have any thoughts on that, of what that's going to look like for businesses that do rely a lot upon organic search, people finding you, where now it's starting to come up where they, you know, they don't have the links. Google's going to have to figure out how to, you know, make revenue maybe from their subscriptions, it looks like, versus the ads. But some things that you guys are addressing with yourself internally as well as with your clients that can be beneficial for the audience.
Yeah, we built a product called Contently AI for a customer, Contently. I think the process that they went through in building this is the correct approach. Every piece of content on the internet should have a combination of AI and human that's written for it. AI is better at certain things and human is better than certain things. And the percentage of those can be argued. I get that. Like 10% of the outline can be human or 50% of the outline can be human. In the middle, AI is very good at fact checking. They're very good at understanding headings and which heading is good for SEO. That is something that AI should do. And then publishing, the human should do that. They should do the final check, make sure it's valid, and send it out to the world. So if you think of that process, especially how Contently laid it out, he has a list of like 20 steps that the editor has to go through to publish a piece of content online. Some of those are AI, some of those are human. SEO is one of those steps that we do have to understand as Google shifts from blue links to the AI mode. How does SEO matter for the marketers so that organic search is still a thing? Authenticity is becoming the de facto proof of what Google is using to rank higher, whether you're the zero-click, you know, result or you're the actual third or fourth content piece in there. The summary of the first page is what gets sent back to the AI model. And we have to think of a future where I just have a phone and a voice and I ask a question and I get an answer. In that response, how much of that answer is coming from my product, my brand? And Google is telling us that the more authority that I have on that topic, the better chance I have at helping that person solve the problem. So it's just like back in the 1600s and 1500s, whenever you want to say it, when they were trading, you know, iron for ore or corn for wheat. What was the thing that we did? We had an expertise and a speciality, and no one else in that community or village knew about that. But if they wanted corn, they go to the farmer and they ask him all the corn questions in the world, and he knew about that. So if I need to get an answer in a specific field or realm, the person that has the authority and the ability to answer it should be answering in that question. More importantly, I'm willing to be that representative, which means I'm also willing to pay for that spot, right? And I don't know what direction we go with the monetization scheme, but I am willing to be the expert in the spot, just like a doctor is willing to put his office on the street corner right in the middle of town as opposed to the outskirts. I'm willing to have that visibility. And since I'm willing to have that visibility, I'm also willing to go on Reddit and Twitter and Quora and Facebook and promote the fact that I have that authority. And if the two play nicely together, should all work out. Google will look for the authoritative answer on a question, and the most authority person that put the most resources and effort into solving that problem will get their response shown. If that all works, now we have a new way to do organic traffic.
Yeah, very well said. And it's not going to, none of it's easy. You know, I remember the old days where it was keyword stuffing and creating all kinds of BS content. Obviously, you know, early 2000s, and it keeps evolving. But I think you hit it there. The authenticity is important. It's key. And then, you know, right now we're seeing, you know, Google, you know, resonating with the reviews and making sure that, you know, if you are a company that's forward facing, and you have good service, make sure that you're asking if compliance allows for it, but making sure you're getting those reviews, because that's another piece that they're definitely utilizing as we're starting to see, okay, why is this company ahead of us or this company not ahead of us, things of that nature. Different industries, obviously different things, but that authenticity is something you can't hide.
Yes, you can't hide it, but you're right. Reviews matter more than anything because the authority on that review. I saw somebody who's a very high up, like Neil Patel level style, high up in SEO. And they asked him, like, what is the three most important things for generative AI search? And his number one was, you know, be authoritative. But his number two is like, have author pages. The author pages are what is going to determine who is providing this information. Are you somebody real? And that author page should also have links to the LinkedIn and the Twitter and the Facebook. And what are they saying? And before, an author page didn't matter that much because I could say that I'm king of the world and nobody really knew. And I don't know if you guys have ever, if the people on the podcast have watched How I Met Your Mother, but there's a great podcast where Barney's trying to pick up one of the girls, and he creates a Wikipedia page. He creates like this nonprofit organization. And so he says his name to the female he's trying to pick up. And then he goes to the bathroom. And of course, she looks him up and finds out that he's this famous Wikipedia king or whatever it was. And he comes back and he goes on a date with her. Like, he scores that. We can't do that anymore because, like, the humans are human and we live our lives. And you can't just research on a Wikipedia page to find out who somebody is. You have to do the actual effort of where are they posting? How are they posting? What are they talking about? And AI can do that in a split second. It can find out that Barney's fake person is a fake person and realize very quickly that there's no actual person that exists besides that Wikipedia page. But with AI, we can validate that. And as these fact checkers, especially Google's got to be writing this, right? What is a real human? What is a real fake AI agent? What is a real model on Instagram? What is an AI model on Instagram? Facebook knows that. And so if they know that, then the responses should be generated from the humans that are putting in the effort to provide that expert opinion.
And then as your journey from, you know, building just you and your founder to now where you are today, what are some of the successes that you think you can share, you know, as a CEO? And for you, I assume you have employees here, but then we talked earlier before the podcast, you have developers or had developers in Ukraine. Yep. So putting on that hat, what's been some of the things that have helped you grow as a CEO and build your business?
Yeah, I tell people, and they don't want to hear this advice, I think, because they really want to build a startup. But I tell people the biggest success that I've had and the most success I've had is because I was an apprentice for 8 years inside of large companies, government companies, as a W-2 worker. What I learned during those times is how not to be a boss. Excuse me. Do you want to circle back on the question, or?
No, you're good. We'll edit it.
Okay. Sorry, let me just take a second then to make sure I don't have to do it again. All right, sorry. I've had this tickle for a while, but we'll cut it out. So what I've learned over the years as being a CEO is the most important thing is being an apprentice. And I tell young entrepreneurs that want to start a company, I tell them all the time, like, don't just start your company at 20, 21, or 22. The most important part of your journey is learning from other people what not to do. And if you start your company, especially at 2021, when you finally start having a little bit of money, working for a bigger company, it's going to pay dividends for you in the future. And the reason why I say that is when you work for people, you have good and bad that happens to you. You understand when you get treated poorly, what that felt like. You understand what it's like to ask for permission to do something and being told no. You understand what it's like to come up with an idea and have everyone in the company tell you it's a horrible idea and it'll never work. and then watch another company come up with that idea and saying, I told you so. Those experiences are only because you were a worker for somebody else. And when you're an apprentice, you go through the pain and the struggles. As a CEO, you don't want to treat people poorly, but if you never saw what it's like, you will fall into the trap of just treating people the way that you thought was right and not realizing that they've had this feeling underneath them because they like are being treated poorly or being ignored, or you're ignoring their ideas. You've never had that feeling. So I think it's very important that entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs, go through the practice of working for other people, doing stuff they don't want to do for their future selves when they actually do have the money and the control and the actual, the agency to create a company, and then realizing how the other people in their company feel so that they can build a better culture and they can build a better experience for the people that want to work for them.
Yeah. Very sound advice, and I'm sure it's hard for you when you're working with some of these startups and they're 22 and it's hard to have them truly understand that no matter, you can learn a lot from books, but unless you're in the weeds seeing what is a good manager, what is a good boss, what isn't.
That's right.
How did that affect? That's great advice. And then I was at dinner last night with my daughter. She's 19, just finished up her freshman year of college, and we were talking through on, what AI is going to look like in the next few years, theoretically, and, but trying to determine if we have younger listeners or listeners with kids, it's like, what is the path that they should look at, where we've got this disruption with AI. We know it's taking away certain things, but it's adding other things. So what's some of that advice that you would give to your own kids as they get older and you look at this and say, what's the world going to look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years, and how they can game plan out and strategize?
I don't think it's as dramatic as what people are touting online. And there are people much smarter than me with much more knowledge of how things are moving inside of these bigger companies. So they could be providing much better advice than I could give. I am only a little person in a boutique company building AI products all the time. But I'm telling my kids, learn computers, learn how they work, learn AI, learn how it works, and learn how to deploy agents to do tasks for you. I think all of us in the future are going to have a personal assistant, if not 1,000 personal assistants, to order Ubers, order flights, get restaurant deals for us. I hope I never have to get a reservation at a restaurant again. I just ask it and it either pulls it off or doesn't. Those are the types of things that I think kids can learn. And I think it's no different than when computers came along. There's a whole bunch of accountants that I'm sure raised their hand and said, Excel is the worst thing that's ever happened to the accounting industry. I can't believe we're all going to switch to using this computer thing when I'm more efficient on paper. Every accountant now that's hired is using Excel. Every accountant is using some sort of software to help them be a better accountant. Now, the practice of being an accountant is the same, and the practice of being a bookkeeper is still the same. They can just get more done with their time. And I think AI is going to be the same thing. There's a lot of things in our life that we waste time with. Booking things for our kids, checking calendars, emails. Like, there's a lot of stuff we waste time with. And I hope AI removes that. But for kids that are learning jobs and learning things, probably going into a profession like a paralegal is probably a waste of time. Being a lawyer, a very valuable lawyer that can solve problems with AI, is a very good profession. So lawyers are not going to be replaced entirely. Paralegals will be replaced entirely. Assistants, like those mediocre jobs those middle of the road jobs that have people working on tasks for other people to provide research, doing keying, data entry, those types of work is probably going to be replaced by AI. But that doesn't mean that the skill set that those people had is not valuable somewhere else in the company. They're valuable just at a higher revenue rate, or the most valuable thing that they did in their days is what they're going to do all the time. Just like the most valuable thing for an accountant was to do the taxes or do the actual communication with the other humans to explain to them how their taxes work. The actual process of writing it down and keeping track of it, sure, that changed, but it didn't ruin their jobs. There's still hundreds of thousands of accountants around the world. So the most important thing that I tell my kids is do something you want to do. What do you enjoy? What's your hobby? What do you love doing every single day? There's probably a job for that. And whatever that happens to be, my kids are much younger than yours, but whatever that happens to be, there will be an opportunity to be an expert. And if you're an expert, you're falling back into that Google conversation we had where the experts gain authority. That authority then gains all the interest, and you can be an expert where people are coming to you and paying you money to do the thing you want
Beautiful.
the world to see.
Can't wait to turn this into a reel and send it off to my daughter.
Yeah, there you go.
As we wind down, what's in store for you over the next 5 years? What are you looking to accomplish?
Yeah, we love what we do. I mean, I got asked in a CEO peer group. Everyone mostly is always trying to sell their companies. And so one of the challenges that we went around the room in is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What type of team do you work for? Who do you work with? And what type of clients do you have? Or what type of business are you operating? And most everyone dreams of a day of leveling up. And when they got to me, I was like, can I work with the same people that I have now? Can I have the same type of clients that I have now and the same business partner? And can I just run this business in a way that people appreciate, that we have a line out the door of clients that really want to work with us because we're so good at what we do and they love the outputs because they're making a bunch of money with our product. I hope truly that every client makes more money after using us than they did before they used us. So then we're just like a no-brainer, line out the door of people that just want to say, hey, can you build this? Can you do this cool idea? Can we build more Chuck GPTs for the world? It is fun to be us. And I think people that work here see that, and I hope that we can do this for another 20 years.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's so many. Even in our EO here in Arizona, you have a lot. They just want to sell and be done, and they're just tired of it. So to have the passion that you're 13 years into this thing and still loving what you're doing, and just the opportunity and the growth that you're providing for yourself, for your employees, for your developers, and then for your clients, that's you kind of hit the lottery there, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I appreciate that.
How can listeners and viewers, how can they reach you? What's the best way?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. I post every day. I write all my content on Sunday and then it all goes out, but I comment on everything. I'm not that big, so if you send a comment to me, I'll see it. But don't title it like I have something to sell you. Title it with, I heard you on this podcast. I heard you with Andrew Raphael. Do those types of things, and I will respond to them.
Yep. And that is, again, listeners making sure that it's not written all by AI. Put some human in it, right? Because you and I get emails all day long or these text messages. We know it's BS.
Yes.
So humanize it. Put a little effort in it. Do a little research, especially if you're trying to, build and deepen a relationship, and don't sell, provide value, most importantly.
Exactly.
Andrew, this has been great. Probably could have went on another hour with you. Love what you're doing, and going to continue watching the success of what you and your founder are building at 923. And we'll see what the industry looks like, and probably have you on in 5 years, and the whole industry will be on a different on its head. But we appreciate you spending time with us. Thanks so much.
Anytime. Pleasure to be here. Have a good day.
Listeners, viewers, make sure to stay tuned for a brand new episode later this month. Like and follow for more content like this. We appreciate you all. Happy planning, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon.